2 expired, and 1 being his active diplomatic passport. We are returning them, and they will be ready for pickup at WFO at 2 p.m. today. I am traveling, but you can coordinate further with blank, copied above. Thanks, Jay. So I think your insight seems accurate, Ryan, that this is an issue of having taken them, but no longer having them in their possession and trying to kind of thread that needle rhetorically.
Right, they kind of slipped it back. Like, what are you talking about? We don't have these. The MSNBC reaction was pretty fascinating. Do we have some of that we can play?
Usually in investigations, you seize a passport when you're about to charge somebody and you're concerned they're a flight risk, or you seize a passport because it contains evidence of the crimes you're looking at. The warrant says agents can seize evidence of crimes they're looking at. What are the crimes they're looking at? Espionage? Great. So what would that mean? Well, his travel record is in his passport. Could it be possible they're looking at espionage committed while traveling? I don't know. I'm leaning toward the simpler answer. Your passport is not yours, by the way. It's the U.S. government's. It's a privilege to have it. They can take it back. Right. And he shouldn't have a diplomatic or an official passport.
Yeah.
Those might be some of the dumbest things I've ever heard. I mean, what are you talking about? Trump's travel records? This is the president of the United States. When was this guy, slipping off? It reminds me, okay, did Michael Cohen go to Prague and meet with Russians? And that one they couldn't even actually nail down. But if Donald Trump went to Prague, like to meet with Russians, or he went to the Seychelles for some secret meeting with Eric Prince, I think we would know if Donald Trump made a trip out of the country. Would we not at flight risk?
Right.
Like,
for
this
the
is the
same
most recognizable guy in the country.
Exactly.
Ironically, I'm pretty sure that a majority of folks on the right listening to this will not recognize some issues with what this guy just said. Even if they will claim not to support Trump or they don't even like Trump, again, it's about tribalism, so it's not about Trump. It's about your side. Trump is not on the left. He's on the right. At least that's the character he plays on TV. So, if you're tribal, you are going to be opposed to any attacks on your supposed side. So, he suggests that the MSNBC guy is making some ridiculous statements. And he mentions, I thought he was going to get into the password is not your own thing. But no, he goes into the idea that maybe they're looking for your travel records, and that's why they want to look at the passport, because that would be relevant to the warrant. And then he says, this is the President of the United States. Now, ironically, him saying that is something that it would be really ironic if a lot of right-wingers don't recognize the problem with that statement. The problem with the statement of saying that Donald Trump is the President of the United States. Like, he literally said, this is, not was, this is the President of the United States. Right? And you would think right-wingers would jump on that and be like, oh, see, even he admits that Trump is the real president. Right? Right. So, no, Trump is not the President of the United States. So therefore, your entire argument about them not needing to look at his passport to see his travel doesn't make any sense. Like, step back for a second and let's focus on the context of this investigation. This entire investigation is post-presidency, right? Because as certain dishonest folks on the right have mentioned, Trump has the capacity to declassify documents, right? So we wouldn't really be investigating and going after him as president for having classified documents, which he has the ability to declassify if he wanted to. The only context to do so would be Trump the civilian having classified documents. And that's what this is, right? They're going after him, trying to retrieve and potentially charge him with the mishandling of these confidential documents post-presidency. He left the White House and took confidential documents with him as a civilian, right? So the crime was committed as a civilian. So not President of the United States, civilian Donald J. Trump is who they're going after. So that crushes this entire argument about, oh, we know where the president goes. No, we don't have records of where Donald J. Trump, the private citizen, has gone after the presidency. Right? And the thing about this stuff that is strange to me, and I see this all over the media, all, both sides, corporate, independent, whatever it is. Someone says something as ridiculous as that and the other person doesn't pick up on it. It's one thing for him, maybe he slipped up or whatever his reasoning is, but then Brianna, who I really respect her work, I think she's ironically a good faith actor. I have some issues with, trying to call it alliances. I don't see them as alliances, but she, let's just say, a little bit softer than I would like on certain so-called left-wing folks that seem to pander a lot to the right. I don't see her doing it a lot herself, but she seems to be, let's just say, too soft on them. But here she is. Just heard that comment, and her response is laughing and like, yeah, ha ha ha, that's so ridiculous. We don't know for a fact they were looking at his passport to see his travel records. That was just something speculated by MSNBC. But the point is that the argument that that's ridiculous because he was the president makes no sense whatsoever for something that is entirely about after the presidency, right? So you can challenge the idea that they're using his passport to get his travel records. You can challenge that. But the way to challenge it is not to say he was the president. He wasn't.
The best faith reading I could potentially imagine, if I were inclined to give a good faith reading, is that, let's say they unlocked the safe, they decided just to scoop out the entire contents of the safe, review what was in them, and then return them as soon as possible. I can see a world where, yes, they were technically taken and then returned, and maybe they shouldn't have been immediately taken, but it was done as a part of a broader sweep of documents. Let's say you want to...
So I'm not sure what she's doing here, but I would expect Donald Trump to have these confidential records in a location where he would keep his most confidential records, right? Where would you keep something that's super, super top secret, sensitive, you're not supposed to even have it? You're going to want to keep it in some place very, very secure, right? You don't want people to find it or get access to it. That's the same kind of protocol that one would apply to documents like their driver's license, well, not driver's license, something that you're storing. So something like your passports. People would normally put passports like in a safe, right? The same place where you might put stuff like what they are getting from him. So the idea that the passports might have been in one of those boxes or a safe or areas that they're looking in, it seems very, very a likely possibility. Now, the only problem with that, though, is you can't just be taking stuff and rolling out because you need, then something's missing, you need some accountability. So that's why they do like an inventory. So there was a list of stuff that they took. So that would mean there shouldn't be any context for you to take the passports without actually knowing you're taking the passports. So unless it was an oversight by someone who took them by accident or something, I don't see how you could grab a box that says confidential documents and, okay, I guess I'll take that back. If you look at a box that says confidential, whatever, and you flip through it, they're not going to examine every single page and whatever. If generally you look in this box and you're seeing a theme, it's all nuclear launch code stuff. right? You're probably just going to look at it, make that assessment, and write it down. Nuclear launch code stuff. And then you're going to, bag it, tag it, and roll out, right? I don't think it's feasible that they would examine every single page, they would do their best effort to document as much as possible. But if stuff is hidden under stuff, in between things, then it could be missed. So then the question is, how quickly did it take for them to recognize that they took something they weren't supposed to take and return it? I think a lot of folks on the left and the right might be reading into this and trying to push different narratives. Certainly we know there's some folks trying to push this seizing of passports so he can't travel. I think, anyway.
The passports to make sure there wasn't anything wedged in the sake of thoroughness or something like that. Some people might still think that was not legitimate or something that shouldn't have been done, but I don't know that there's necessarily nefarious intent. But I completely agree with you, Ryan. The idea that Trump is a flight risk or that he has all of these uncharted trips as the president of the United States that needed to be confirmed or disavowed by looking at his passport is pretty incredible.
Imagine being the passport guy who's like looking up and seeing Trump come back through. Like, interesting. At minimum, this is some serious recklessness because they took 20 boxes. They've got a whole bunch of quote unquote filter agents. The passports are very recognizable documents. You can go through 20 boxes because this is high stakes stuff. If this is just a run of the mill FBI investigation, all right, you sweep up some passports, you hand them back the next day. You don't accidentally sweep up the former president's passports if you're trying to take this seriously, and it
right.
suggests that there isn't the seriousness being given to it that needs to be.
Yeah, well, this is the question and why people are so curious to know what's in the affidavit. Because if it really is just this issue of documents that were confidential in nature that should have been returned on a routine basis, but don't necessarily contain information that is a special security risk or risk to the country or taken for nefarious reasons, then people want to know that, because the implication is that the unprecedented nature of this search is because there was evidence that there was something in Trump's possession that warranted an intrusion like this, that warranted not just waiting for Trump and his people to get their act together and finally turn over these documents. And that's not to say it's an excuse for them feet dragging the way they apparently have done in returning these boxes of documents. But without more, the feet dragging doesn't seem to be enough to have warranted this kind of intrusion. That is why there's all this scrutiny on the affidavit. And I really do hope, for the sake of, the kind of liberal political context, that there is a there.
Yeah, and I think they need to be because they said they're going to release some more documents. Whatever the judge says, they're going to release more.
Now let me do a little bit of debunking here. So, if the idea is that the FBI took the passports to look at his travel records, right? This is something that these guys on the Rising are saying. FBI didn't say that. That's not something that was made a Department of Justice statement. That is Rising that is suggesting this. If this was the case, it does not match with other realities, right? That's just pure speculation, but here is fact. So, the FBI, as you can see on your screen, didn't list it in the chain of materials that they took associated with the search warrant. So the passports weren't considered evidence that had to do with the case. If they wanted to utilize the passports as part of their case, they're looking at travel records, they wouldn't be able to do that without including it in the chain of materials. Because in their case, they're going to present evidence that they found, right? And then there needs to be a record, like, how did you get these passports, right? President Trump traveled to such and such a date, whatever, right? All this stuff needs to be documented. So if they were going to use the passports for something like that, like they're not going to tell us everything they're doing, if they were going to use it in an official capacity, they would want to put it chain of materials. Now, somebody who is a sort of a Russell Brand or Tim Pool type of thinker is thinking conspiratorially that they want to use the passports secretly, but they don't want to let you know that they're using it. Okay. First of all, you can't use the passports without making it official, right? Because when you're presenting your case, like where'd you get this information from, you have to present this information. If ultimately they wanted for some reason to know his travel plans, where he was, the travel record, they just want that information to use it for whatever reason, but for some reason they don't want to do it officially, then all you do is you find the passports, you take photos of them, right? And now you've got the information. Why do you actually take the passports from him, take it back to headquarters or whatever, only to then go deliver it back, right? And then you never officially record it as part of your case. So you're not making any evidence, you're not making any effort to allow yourself to utilize information from the passports in an official manner, right? Then why would you officially take it to your headquarters when you could just, like if you're going to do something sneaky, when you're at Mar-a-Lago, you look at his stuff and you take pictures, right? That's not going to be very hard. I mean, an FBI agent digging through a box and taking pictures, I'm sure they were taking lots of pictures of a lot of different things. So if you want to do something shady, right, something about where he was, that's what you do, right? You don't take it to headquarters so that he can notice that it's missing and then make this big noise, and then now it's like, oh, they took my passports, they're trying to dissonance political, blah, blah, blah. No, why would you do that? Just take the pictures. You'd never know the difference. Now you have the information, and you can use that to tie different things, and you can look into other things based on that, right? There's no logic behind what's being stated here.
That we're headed to a place where, from the right, you're going to have, doesn't matter what's found in these boxes, because if it's something bad, the FBI planted it there, and if it's not something bad, then this shows that they shouldn't have been in there in the first place. And from the kind of Democratic perspective, they're going to, they can always say, well, the things that are in there are so secret that we just can't tell you. Yeah. And so you will always have a faction of kind of anti-Trump folks who, no matter what comes out, are going to be, well, it's nuclear secrets, it's nuclear codes. Although, which would be hilarious if he stole the nuclear codes and they didn't change the codes when you have a new president.
That's exactly the issue. If it's that serious, at a certain point, it's an indictment on the FBI for having waited this long to actually get in there and get it. And with respect to the idea of it being nuclear codes, I will say that I've seen some conservatives move the goalpost even on that, where initially they were saying it has to be as serious as the nuclear codes, and now I saw one commentator at least saying even if it were the nuclear codes, it wouldn't be enough. So I'm sure we'll see more political responses as we learn more information. We have no radars today due to Robbie being out, but we will have more rising for you.
This is the Debate Me channel. Debate me in the comment section below. Click on the like button, subscribe, smash that bell, be well.